Way back. John took me down the Tatshenshini River in northwestern British Columbia in 1993 when we were both working to try and save that amazing piece of this planet from a proposal to develop an open pit copper mine. So I think, we all owe John a debt of gratitude for his work on that project. I don't know if he's such a modest guy, he probably doesn't even talk about that. I'm here tonight. I'm delighted to be back in Wolfville. I was here 10 years ago on an earlier book tour, and this is one of the loveliest towns in Canada, so thank you for coming out tonight. I've got two books out this year. One's called The Environmental Rights Revolution, and it's a study of constitutional protection for the environment around the world. I'm going to talk about that book tonight, and I've also got a book out called The Right to a Healthy Environment, Revitalizing Canada's Constitution. And that second book really takes the lessons that have been learned over the last 40 years around the world in terms of other countries' experiences with the right to a healthy environment, and says, my God, the things that are happening around the world should really be happening in Canada as well, particularly in light of some of the recent political things and Canada's ranking in the world. I want to start off tonight by telling two stories, one from Argentina and one from Canada. This is a woman by the name of Beatriz Mendoza, who I would be absolutely shocked if any of you have heard of. She's an ecological superhero on this planet. She's a public health nurse in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and she moved, about 10 years ago, she moved to a neighborhood of Buenos Aires that's extremely poor and very polluted. It's a neighborhood that the Riachuelo River runs through, and this is a photograph of the Riachuelo River, widely renowned as one of the most polluted rivers in South America. So after a couple of years of living in this neighborhood, Beatriz Mendoza started to suffer some health problems herself, including the loss of feeling in her fingertips and her toes. She was cutting vegetables for dinner one night and noticed that her finger was bleeding, and yet she hadn't felt the cut. And so she went to her doctor. She had a series of tests done, and it turned out that she had extremely elevated levels of toluene in her blood. Toluene is a neurotoxin that attacks the central nervous system, and it's a byproduct of petroleum refining. And so this is an area that's densely populated with petroleum refineries, petrochemical facilities, and Beatriz Mendoza, to her credit, she didn't take this news sitting down. She gathered a bunch of neighbors together, they hired a lawyer, and she filed a lawsuit against the government of Argentina, the provincial government, the municipal government, and 44 major industrial polluters, saying that they had violated her constitutional right to live in a healthy environment. The case was filed in 2004, and it wound its way through the court system. In 2008, it reached the Supreme Court of Argentina, and that court issued what, in my 20 years of working as an environmental lawyer, is the most extraordinary decision I've ever read. The Supreme Court of Argentina said, you're right. Your right to live in a healthy environment has been violated by this pollution, and we are going to order the governments to take remedial action. And we're not just going to say clean up the watershed. The court ordered the government to build new drinking water treatment plants, to build wastewater treatment plants, to build stormwater discharge systems, to conduct inspections of every polluting facility in the entire watershed, to clean up and restore the river, to address some of the shanty towns and slums that had sprung up on the riverbanks and build social housing, and to make sure that the governments didn't just ignore the court's order, which does happen in some countries from time to time. The court added a couple of special provisos. They appointed a federal court judge to look after the implementation of the order, and they also instituted a system whereby if the timelines the court set up were not met, the politicians responsible would be fined for every day beyond those deadlines. So they were aware of the magnitude of what they were doing. That was the summer of 2008. 4 years later, I'm pleased to report that there has been extraordinary progress in cleaning up the Riachuelo River Basin. There have been 3 new drinking water treatment plants built, serving millions of people. 11 sewage treatment plants have been built or upgraded, again, serving millions of people. 139 monitoring stations have been put in place to measure air quality, water quality, and soil contamination. 169 illegal dumps have been closed and cleaned up. 250 environmental enforcement officials have been hired. Well, actually 247, because in 2008, there were 3 environmental enforcement officials in this watershed. There are now 250. And just to put that number in Canadian context, that's more enforcement officials than Environment Canada has for this country as a whole. 484 industrial polluters have been shut down since 2008. Tens of thousands of tons of scrap metal, sunken cars, sunken ships have been dredged out of the Riachuelo River, sold for scrap metal, and the money reinvested in cleanup. Thousands of trees have been planted along the banks of the river. And the governments of Argentina, the municipal, provincial, and federal governments this year will spend $1.3 billion cleaning up the Riachuelo River. They're spending about $1 billion a year on average, and expect that to continue on until the year 2017. It's just an incredible story of progress in a country that doesn't have anywhere near the wealth of Canada, where promises have been made by governments for decades to clean up the Riachuelo River. And it took the courage of an individual like Beatriz Mendoza to hold government's feet to the fire, using her constitutional right to a healthy environment.